The forest burned like a living beast behind her. Flames clawed up the trunks, spitting embers into the night as the young girl ran, bare feet slapping against cold earth. Smoke stung her eyes, turning the world into streaks of orange and black. But she didn't dare stop, not when the howls behind her were growing louder, familiar, terrible, marked with the same crescent-shaped birthmark that pulsed on her own skin, the Nightbane mark, her birthright. Her curse branches whipped across her arms as she pushed through the undergrowth. Every step felt heavier than the last, weighted by the screams she had left behind in the burning clearing. Her family's screams. The faces of her elders flickered in her mind, the shock in her mother's eyes, the betrayed snarl of her father as the first blade plunged into him, and over it all, the voice of the one who had given the order. None of them leave alive, a relative, a trusted bloodline ally, a man whose scent she knew since childhood. Her chest tightened. She couldn't think of him now. She couldn't afford to. A snapping twig sounded behind her. Then another, then a low, predatory growl. Her pulse surged painfully. The Nightbane wolves, her own kin, had turned hunters. Their silhouettes slipped between the trees, eyes glowing with the same silver sheen she carried in her blood. They were faster, bigger, trained. She was only a child, clutching the last remnants of a world falling apart behind her. Keep moving, she told herself. Just breathe, run. A root caught her foot. She stumbled, crashing onto her knees. Pain shot up her leg, but she forced herself upright, wiping tears and soot from her face. Ahead, through the smoke, she saw a sliver of moonlit clearing. An exit, a way out, but the ground trembled behind her. Heavy paws, snarls, they were closing in. She pushed forward, limping, dragging herself toward the light. The first wolf lunged. She heard the rush of air before she felt it, its shadow falling over her like death itself. She twisted at the last heartbeat, rolling onto her back, and its claws slammed into the dirt where she had stood. Its snout lowered, breath hot, dripping with blood from another kill. Her mother, her throat tightened. Her vision swam. The wolf pounced again, and a deafening crack split the night. The wolf collapsed before it reached her, arrow buried deep in its skull. The others snarled, scattering into the shadows. She didn't know who fired the shot. She didn't look back to find out. She crawled toward the clearing, dragging her shaking body across the soil until the trees gave way to an open stretch of moonlit grass. Cold air hit her lungs, freedom, but fragile. She forced herself upright and ran again, away from the burning forest, away from the mark that cursed her bloodline. She ran until the moon faded and dawn bled pink across the sky. And when her legs could carry her no farther, she collapsed beside a lonely riverbank. There, trembling and alone, she made her vow to live under a borrowed name, to bury the mark beneath cloth and lies, and to never, ever let the past find her again. But the past had teeth, and someday it would hunt. By the time she reached the edge of Silvercrest territory, 12 years had passed since the night the forest burned. Her mark was hidden beneath a thin strip of leather that never left her arm, and her name, her real one, was buried deeper than any grave. Today, she was simply Leora, a girl with no past, a wanderer seeking refuge. Or so she told them. The pack borders loomed before her in the early morning mist, towering pines, watchful silence, and the faint, electric hum of wards woven by generations of shifters. Leora paused, clutching the straps of her worn satchel, her heart pounding with a familiar contradiction, fear and longing. She always felt it near packs, a pull she could never fully suppress. She stepped forward. Almost instantly, 2 wolves emerged from the shadows. Massive, pied, their fur bristling with suspicion. They didn't approach. They didn't need to. Their growls alone demanded one thing: state your purpose. Her voice wavered only once. I seek shelter, work, a chance to stay, even for a short time. A ripple of silence followed. Then the wolves shifted, bones snapping, limbs reshaping in a blur of movement. 2 men replaced them, each tall and formidable. The emblem of Silvercrest burned into their jackets. Warriors, refuge. One repeated, eyes narrowing. From what? Leora kept her face smooth, calm. Forgettable, from hunger and cold, nothing more. A lie, but she had practiced it for years, and it rolled off her tongue with soft precision. Still, their gazes lingered too long. Wolves were creatures of instinct, of scent and energy. She felt their caution prickle against her skin like static. They sensed something, an oddness, a piece of her that didn't belong. Before either could speak, a deeper voice cut through the trees, let her in. Leora stiffened. He stepped into view like the forest parted for him, all broad, shouldered, dark hair falling over sharp eyes that flickered with amber when they caught the light. Power moved around him in slow, controlled waves. The kind of presence that made the air itself hold its breath. Alpha Kalan, the Silvercrest Alpha, and the last person she wanted to draw attention from. The warriors exchanged looks but obeyed immediately. No one questioned an Alpha's instinct. Kalan approached, gaze locked on her with unsettling intensity. His wolf pressed close to the surface. She could feel it in the weight of his stare. Something in him responded to her. Recognition, interest, danger. What's your name? He asked quietly. Leora. She replied, nothing more. A lie again, and his eyes sharpened just slightly, as if he heard the truth hidden beneath it. After a long pause, he nodded once. You may stay, but understand, Silvercrest is not kind to secrets. Her breath caught, because she had come here to hide one, and the Alpha already sensed it. The pack house loomed like a carved fortress of timber and stone, perched on a rise where the forest met a winding river. Leora followed the warriors up the steps, each heartbeat echoing with the weight of the Alpha's final words. Silvercrest is not kind to secrets. Inside, the warmth of the hearth brushed against her chilled skin. Wolves moved through the grand hall, some curious, others indifferent, but she felt all their eyes as if they pressed against her spine. Packs always carried a collective consciousness, a pulse, a hum of shared instinct. Leora had spent years avoiding it. Now she walked right into its center. Kalan dismissed the guards with a quiet command, then approached her with the slow, deliberate movement of a predator, trying not to spook its prey. His wolf pressed against him so fiercely, she could almost feel its growl under his skin. He studied her as though searching for something he couldn't quite name. You traveled alone, he asked. Yes, she answered, keeping her tone steady. No escort, no scent of another pack, no ties. His gaze drifted to her covered arm. And no past, she swallowed. Is that a requirement to stay? His lips twitched, not quite a smile. It's simply unusual. Unusual, not impossible, not immediately dangerous, just wrong enough to bother him. His wolf surged again, amber pushing through his irises before he blinked it back. Leora looked away quickly. She wasn't meant to be noticed. Her entire existence depended on that. Kalan stepped closer, lowering his voice. What are you hiding? The question struck her like a blade, sharp and too close. Instinctively, she took a step back. The movement triggered something primal in him. His wolf snapped to attention, its recognition sparking in the air between them. In that single breath, every hair on her arms rose. She could feel his wolf's pull, as if it knew her, as if it wanted to claim. Kalan exhaled, jaw clenching. Why do I feel like I've met you before? Her pulse spiked. I wouldn't know. I've never been here. A lie, one of many, but this one tasted bitter even to her. Kalan didn't push, not directly. Instead, he moved around her in a slow circle, assessing her as though she were a puzzle piece that refused to fit. His voice dipped. You smell of something old. Leora froze, old, ancient blood she could never admit. Before she could speak, a sharp wind swept through the hall, carrying her scent to him more clearly. Kalan inhaled, and a sudden violent shudder ripped through him. His eyes flashed a deep glowing gold. His wolf was reacting, hard to her. He braced a hand against the wall, breath ragged. What are you? The question wasn't accusing. It was instinctive, desperate. His wolf clawed inside him, wanting closer, wanting answers, wanting her, and then his expression changed, a flicker of shock, of recognition, of something he shouldn't have sensed this soon. He leaned in, voice rough and low. Your scent, it shouldn't exist anymore. Her blood ran cold, because he was right, and Kalan, the worst possible man to discover it, had just gotten close enough to notice. The next days unfolded like a fragile truce. Kaelin avoiding her with calculated distance, and Leora doing everything she could not to draw his gaze. But the strain of their proximity lingered in every corner of the pack house. Wolves were born to sense tension. Whispers grew like vines. Who is she? She doesn't smell normal. Why would the alpha allow an outsider without a past? Leora kept her head low, shoulders tucked inward, shaping herself into the smallest possible presence. It had worked for years, but here among a pack guided by an alpha whose instincts never slept. Her walls felt paper-thin, and Kaelin watched her even when he didn't mean to. He caught her in the training yard once, when she slipped while carrying water buckets. Before she hit the ground, he was already there, hand on her wrist, grip firm, too warm. The moment their skin touched, a static pulse shot through them both. His wolf lunged inside him, her breath faltered. His eyes darkened, heat swirling with something like recognition. Desire, claim. He released her abruptly as though scorched. Stay away from me, he muttered and walked off without looking back. But the pack saw, and the rumors sharpened. Days later, the Silvercrest gathering arrived. A ceremonial night when the alpha welcomed all wolves publicly, reaffirming membership and bonds. Leora had intended to hide at the edges, invisible as always, but fate shoved her forward when Kaelin's beta called her name. Leora stepped before the alpha. Her stomach dropped. Kaelin stood on the raised platform, power radiating from him like a second skin. The firelight framed his silhouette, fierce and commanding, but his eyes, when they landed on her, held a storm. The pack murmured, sensing the crackle in the air. Kaelin's wolf surged again when she neared him. It pushed through his control, reaching for her, recognizing something she hid beneath cloth and lies. His nostrils flared, his jaw clenched, and for one impossible moment, Leora saw the alpha lean toward her, as if his wolf were trying to mark her. Gasps rose from the crowd, the beta stiffened. A jealous she-wolf snarled under her breath. The air went razor, sharp. Leora froze, breath caught in her throat. Kaelin's hand lifted, just a few inches, but enough to make every wolf there hold their breath. Then he stopped. A fracture of fear flashed across his eyes, not for her, for what she might be. Kaelin straightened, expression turning to ice. His voice cut through the gathering like a blade. I do not accept her, he declared. I reject whatever bond my wolf thinks it senses. A collective gasp swallowed the courtyard. Leora stood motionless, her heart. She didn't feel it break. It had been broken years ago. She simply bowed her head. As you command, Alpha. No tears, no trembling, no collapse, and that, more than the rejection itself, made the pack whisper louder. Kaelin stared at her as she backed away, something tortured flickering behind his cold facade. His wolf snarled inside him, furious at what he just forced it to deny, but he didn't call her back. He turned his face away, rejecting her a second time without a word. Leora slipped into the shadows beyond the torches. Unaware that the rejection had not loosened the tension between them, it had only ignited the fuse. The night after the gathering tasted of cold ash and bitter whispers. Leora kept to the farthest edges of the pack house, choosing the small storage room they offered her rather than the communal quarters. Her body felt heavy, but not from rejection. She'd survived far worse. Still, Kaelin's voice echoed through her mind like a wound that refused to close. I do not accept her. She had bowed, expression unreadable, but inside something twisted with a familiar ache, not heartbreak. Recognition, the same old truth. She was never meant to belong. By morning, the entire pack hummed with speculation. She didn't break. That's not normal. No tears, no rage, nothing. She must have known he'd reject her, or she's hiding something. Leora ignored every stare as she swept the hallways, doing the tasks assigned to her. But wolves were social creatures, and gossip clung to them like a second skin, especially when jealousy entered the mix. Mirais, Kaelin's most persistent admirer, cornered her behind the kitchen. Tall, blonde, and dripping confidence, she looked Leora over with a smirk. You think you fooled anyone? Mirais asked, walking in here with that silent little face, pretending you don't know what you did to the Alpha. Leora blinked. What I did? Mirais leaned closer, her voice dropping. His wolf reacted to you. Everyone saw it. That doesn't happen with outsiders. She crossed her arms, unless you're something dangerous. Leora's stomach tightened. Dangerous, a word she'd spent years outrunning, but Mary's wasn't finished. I've seen symbols like the one you hide on your arm. Old mark, old blood, bad blood. Leora forced her expression still. You don't know anything about me. That's the problem, Mary shot back. Nobody does, and that's never a good sign. She walked away with a satisfied toss of her hair, leaving Leora frozen against the wall. The mark beneath her leather band pulsed, once, faint like a warning. She pressed her hand over it, breath shaking. It only ever reacted when a shift of air behind her. She turned, heart clenching. Kalen stood a few feet away, half shadowed in the corridor. His eyes, not cold, not distant, were fixed on her with something rower. Something unspoken. Her pulse stumbled. He stepped closer, then paused, as if fighting his own instincts. Something's different about you. He murmured, something. Old. She swallowed. You already rejected me. Isn't that enough? His jaw tightened. My rejection means nothing to my wolf. A tremor ran through her, and the mark beneath her sleeve, quiet for years, lit with a faint heat reacting to him, to his presence, to the connection he denied but couldn't escape. Kalen's nostrils flared, sensing something he'd never sensed before. He took another step. What are you hiding, Leora? Her breath hitched, because the symbol on her skin, the one tied to a bloodline wiped out long ago, was beginning to glow. And if he saw it, everything she'd buried would be dragged back into the light. The days that followed were tight with tension, like a string pulled taut between two souls desperately trying not to touch. Leora avoided Kalen with the precision of someone who had survived by silence and shadows. She slipped through the pack house at odd hours, finished tasks before dawn, and kept to paths where no one lingered. Yet somehow, Kalen always seemed to find traces of her. A cup left near the river, a faint sent by the training fields, a stray heartbeat echoing behind a door she never opened. He wasn't seeking her, he told himself. He was investigating, but every night, Kalen found himself replaying the moment her hidden mark pulsed beneath her sleeve. Wolves were not supposed to react to something they couldn't see, and yet his wolf had nearly ripped out of him. Something about her was awakening instincts older than Silvercrest itself, and that made him dangerous. It made her vulnerable, and it made the truth a ticking storm. Late one night, Kalen stood in the pack archives, dust sifting like ghostly snow around him. Old scrolls lay unfurled across the long oak table, records of bloodlines, ancient clans, pacts sealed under moonlight. He scanned each one with a growing sense of dread. Nightbane. The name appeared again and again, scratched out, rewritten, then erased entirely in later records. A clan that no longer existed, a clan marked with crescent symbols his breath caught, exactly like the shape he'd glimpsed beneath Leora's sleeve. His wolf snarled inside him, sensing something it had always known but he had forgotten. She can't be, Kalen whispered into the silence. They were wiped out. A rustle behind him. He turned sharply, instincts flaring. But the room was empty except for the faintest trace of her scent. Leora had been there. She knew he was digging. She knew he was getting close. The next evening, Leora ran. She didn't pack. She didn't sleep. At sunset, she slipped past the training grounds and into the deep woods, moving like a phantom. Her breath formed white clouds in the cooling air as she pushed deeper, branches snagging her clothing. She couldn't let him find the truth, not him, not the descendant of the wolves who had once hunted her people. But Kalen had already sensed her departure. By the time she reached the riverbank, a low growl rippled through the forest. He emerged from the shadows, a silhouette of muscle and fury, eyes burning gold in the moonlight. Running again, Kalen's voice was rough, breath uneven from tracking her. You keep doing that, always when someone gets close. Her chest tightened. You don't understand, then make me. He stepped closer. Show me what you're hiding. The command wasn't cruel, it was desperate. The moonlight cut between them, silver and sharp, as Kalen lifted a hand toward her sleeve. Let me see the mark. Leora froze. Because the night she feared most had finally come. The moon hung high, silver and unyielding, as Leora's hand trembled over the leather strap, concealing the mark that had haunted her dreams for 12 years. Kalen's golden eyes, sharp and unrelenting, fixed her in place. His wolf, coiled beneath the surface like a beast on the brink of eruption, pressed insistently against him. Recognition, desire, and instinct all twisted together in a way neither of them could ignore. "You don't have to," Leora whispered, her voice barely audible, fragile as frost. But she knew the moment had passed where her secrecy could protect her. Kalen's wolf had already claimed her scent, tasted the bloodline beneath her skin. "I need to see it," Kalen said, low and firm, not a request, a demand. His wolf growled, vibrating through him, straining toward her like it could tear the world apart to reach the truth. With a trembling hand, she peeled back the strap. The crescent-shaped mark glowed faintly, almost imperceptibly, in the moonlight. Kalen's breath caught in his throat. His wolf whimpered, soft, desperate, claiming. Something ancient stirred in him, a recognition that felt older than Silvercrest, older than his ancestors, older than the world he had always known. "You're Nightbane," he breathed, the word barely a whisper. His wolf surged violently, yanking at the edges of his control. "You're the last of them." "Yes," Leora admitted, the word tasting bitter and liberating all at once. "I survived. I hid. I never wanted anyone to find me, not even you." But Kalen's gaze softened, the mask of authority faltering as he stepped closer. "It doesn't matter what you wanted. You're mine. Our bond exists, whether we accept it or not." She froze at the confession, heart pounding in her chest like a drumbeat. Mine, his wolf claimed her as if it had always known her, always needed her, and she realized she hadn't felt fear for the first time in years. Only the pull of a connection neither of them could deny. "You shouldn't," she whispered, trembling. "Not after everything you've seen, everything I've hidden. You could hate me." Kalen's hand lifted, brushing against her cheek with careful reverence. "I don't hate you. My wolf doesn't hate you, and I won't pretend to ignore what it feels." A rush of heat coursed through her. It wasn't just desire. It was recognition, protection, a fated connection that demanded surrender. Her knees weakened, but Kalen caught her before she could falter, holding her steady, eyes locked on hers, amber and molten under the moon. "You belong to me," he said, voice hoarse, more wolf than man. "Even if you don't want to admit it." She swallowed hard, chest tight with fear and longing. She couldn't deny it, not anymore. The centuries of hiding, of running, of denying her true self, all collapsed in the face of his claim. And yet, even as her body leaned into his, even as his wolf's claim pressed against them both, a fragment of truth remained unspoken. Her past was still only half revealed. Kalen pressed closer, forehead to hers, breathing mingling with hers. "You can't escape this. Not now, not ever." Leora closed her eyes, letting the pull of the alpha and the wolf within him anchor her. For the first time in her life, she felt whole and exposed at once, vulnerable yet protected. A bond neither had asked for had taken root, and neither could deny it, and somewhere deep in the shadows of the forest, the past stirred, waiting for the truth she had yet to reveal. The pack archives smelled of dust and decay, old wood and secrets long buried. Kalen traced his fingers over the brittle scrolls, the weight of the past pressing down on him like stone. Nightbane, the name refused to die. The more he searched, the more fragments he found. Diagrams of crescent marks, records of ceremonies meant to awaken wolves' latent abilities, and accounts of betrayal so deep it could shatter centuries of pride. The ink on the scrolls was faded, but the story screamed across the ages. The Nightbane clan had not been cursed. They had been slaughtered, betrayed, by his ancestors. Kalen's stomach twisted as the truth unfolded. His jaw tightened, fists clenching so hard the parchment crumpled beneath his grip. They weren't monsters. He muttered, disbelief lacing every word. They were hunted. Each revelation cut deeper than he expected, slicing through the pride he had been raised to wield like armor. His ancestors had feared their power, their ability to awaken ancient wolves. In a bid to secure their own dominance, they had orchestrated the clan's annihilation, erasing their legacy completely, leaving only one survivor. Leora. He stumbled backward, the scrolls slipping from his hands. The weight of centuries bore down on him, and he couldn't stop the bitter taste of guilt, anger, and shame that flooded through him all this time. "She suffered because of me, because of us. Meanwhile, Leora sat quietly in her room, unaware that Kaelin had unearthed the truth. She had sensed his investigations growing closer, the subtle shifts in his attention, but she had not expected the storm that now raged in his mind. She had tried so hard to survive alone, to bear the burden of a family erased, of a legacy twisted by lies. When she discovered him standing outside her door hours later, the scrolls clutched to his chest like a shield, her instinct was to flee. But his eyes, dark, haunted, furious, stopped her. "You found it," she whispered, voice tight. "I did," he said, stepping inside, his presence filling the small room. "Everything your family suffered, my family caused my ancestors. They betrayed you. They wiped out your clan and made it look like a curse." Her body froze, breath caught in her throat. Rage, sorrow, disbelief, they collided in her chest. You only came to me to confirm it, didn't you? That I'm guilty." Kaelin flinched, but the words had hit harder than any attack, any rejection. "No, he faltered, voice raw. "I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to face what we've done. But I didn't bring this to hurt you." She shook her head violently, tears spilling down her cheeks. "It's too late. You just proved what I feared, that the past never really dies, that the people we trust can destroy us." Kaelin's wolf growled low in his chest, frustrated and pained. He reached for her, but she recoiled, every ounce of the survivor within her snapping tight. "I can't trust you," she said, voice breaking. "Not yet. Not after this." And with that, she vanished into the night, leaving Kaelin surrounded by the truth he had unearthed, and the jagged edge of a bond now fractured by betrayal. Some truths, it seemed, were meant to hurt, and some pasts were not meant to be forgiven. The night came like a blade, sharp and sudden. Silvercrest Pack had barely begun to recover from the shock of Leora's retreat when chaos erupted. Wolves howled in alarm, their cries carried across the trees like an omen of doom. Smoke curled in the moonlight from the edge of the forest. Shadows moved faster than the eye could follow, and the acrid stench of blood hung heavy in the air. Rogue wolves, the remnants of the clan that had orchestrated the Nightbane massacre, had returned. They moved with precision, targeting the pack with deadly intent. Leora's bloodline had always been a threat to them, and now she stood at the center of the storm. Kaelin raced toward the sounds, heart hammering. His wolf surged with raw instinct, pressing him forward faster than any human limits could allow. And then he saw her, Leora, standing on a hill, hair whipping in the wind, eyes glowing faintly as the mark on her arm flared in response to danger. Her power had awakened, the rogue alpha snarled, lunging at her from the tree line. Without hesitation, Kaelin stepped between them. His body collided with hers in a shield of fire and muscle. "Stay behind me," he barked, voice low and commanding. But Leora didn't move. Instead, her eyes flicked toward the mark. A silver pulse of energy shot outward, flaring through the clearing. Wolves faltered, growled, and yelped as the Nightbane magic pushed them back. A force that had lain dormant for generations, now alive and thrumming in her veins. Kaelin's wolf roared, matching hers, and in that instant, something unbreakable formed. Bonded in fight, in instinct, in the pull of fated mates finally unleashed. Together, they moved as one, a storm of teeth and claws, shadow and silver light, cutting through the chaos with devastating precision. One rogue wolf lunged at Kaelin, and Leora's power lashed out, energy snapping through the air like lightning. The wolf was thrown back, yelping in disbelief. Another approached her, fast, merciless. Kaelin intercepted, claws slashing, teeth snapping, until the creature retreated into the shadows. The fight tore through the forest, but Leora and Kaelin's connection made them unstoppable. Every strike, every defensive movement, flowed with the rhythm of a bond neither had asked for, but now depended on. Finally, the last of the rogues fled, disappearing into the night like ghosts. The clearing fell silent, save for their ragged breathing and the distant rustle of disturbed leaves. Leora sank to her knees, trembling, the adrenaline and relief washing over her. Kaelin crouched beside her, hand on her shoulder. "You," he began, but stopped, staring at her in awe. "You're incredible." Her voice cracked. I didn't know I could do that." He took her hand, gripping it firmly. "You always could. You just didn't know who to trust. And in that moment the truth howled back, not from scrolls or shadows, but from the bond they had finally embraced. Their fates entwined, power and heart, past and present, danger and desire, all burning together beneath the silver moon. This night had tested them, and together they had emerged stronger than any legacy could ever define. But the forest was vast, and enemies were patient. This victory was only the beginning. The first light of dawn spilled over Silvercrest Pack, brushing the trees with gold and silver, as if the forest itself had exhaled after the night's battle. The pack gathered in the central clearing, weary but alive, their eyes shifting toward the figure who had stood at the heart of the storm. Leora. Kaelan stood beside her, silent, powerful, and unwavering. His golden eyes scanned the assembly, every wolf and shifter feeling the intensity of the bond he now openly embraced. No hesitation, no doubt. You have seen what she can do. Kaelan's voice rang out, commanding and steady, cutting through the morning air. And now you will see the truth. A hush fell over the pack. Leora's pulse quickened, the weight of the past. The lies, the betrayals, the bloodline she had hidden, hung between them like a fragile thread. Yet with Kaelan at her side, she felt strength she had never known. I am Leora Nightbane, she said, voice strong despite the tremor beneath. I am the last of my clan. I have hidden my past to survive, but I will not hide from the truth any longer. Gasps rippled through the pack. Some whispered in shock, others in awe. Kaelan's hand lifted, brushing gently over hers, and the Nightbane mark glowed faintly in the sunlight, a visible testament to power and survival. And I, Kaelan said, his voice rich with authority and something deeper, claim her, not for the mistakes of the past, not for vengeance, but because she is mine. She is my mate, and together we are stronger than any legacy, any curse, or any lie. The pack fell silent, the finality of his words settling like stones in their hearts. Leora's eyes glistened, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to breathe without fear. She stepped closer, letting Kaelan's strength anchor her. My truth is no longer a barrier, she whispered, leaning against him. It is our bond. Kaelan's lips brushed her forehead, soft and reverent. Then we faced the future together. Around them, the pack seemed to exhale. The shadows of suspicion, jealousy, and fear lifted as Leora's presence, once hidden, became a symbol of resilience, survival, and destiny. The sun climbed higher, spilling warmth across the clearing, and Kaelan's wolf pressed close beneath his skin, resonating with hers. The mark flared once, brilliant and undeniable, connecting them in a bond that neither time, nor betrayal, nor fear could sever. They stood together, fated mates, survivor and protector, Alpha and Nightbane, bound by more than blood or instinct. The past had come for them, tested them, threatened to destroy them, but here, under the open sky, truth and destiny intertwined. Leora lifted her face to Kaelan's, eyes shining with gratitude, trust, and a fragile, fierce love. We're ready, she said. Kaelan smiled, a rare, unguarded curve of his lips. Always, he murmured, and as the forest whispered around them, they finally understood. Some bonds are forged not by choice, but by destiny, and no secret, no lie, could ever undo what was meant to be. The night had howled, the truth had burned, but now they were whole.